Inter take on Bayern. This is probably the most even tie, and probably the one where I think I said last time people are going to switch off for this one, but I thought it was an amazing game from a completely different perspective to the other games we've spoken about in the other previews. Harry Kane, he did have his best game. He missed a few big chances. Do you think he can save Bayern? Is he the saviour? Is he the answer?
He's a complementary piece. I think evidence has shown us that. I don't want to get cooked, but he ain't the guy, man. Like we know it. You know it when you see it, right? You know it when you see it and you feel it. I've had it at my football club. This guy's goal to game ratio was not the best, Didier Drogba. But when it got to the biggest moments, you knew you had the guy. Harry Kane is the antithesis of Didier Drogba. His goals to game ratio in league matches, in the Champions League, is amazing. But when it gets to the highest of leverage moments, he just doesn't deliver. Not to say that he can't. Not to say that he can't turn it around. Football is fluid and people can change their narratives and destinations and futures. But for me to rely on Harry Kane in the second leg against an Inter Milan side that are better coached than Bayern Munich, I'm not going to do it. So let's see if Harry Kane can turn it around. I really like him. I know that he hasn't got the best reputation because in big games doesn't turn up. But I want to see Harry Kane succeed. Will I see it this year in the Champions League? I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, Bayern should have been 1-0 up in that tie and it should have been Kane who scored it every single other day in the week. Harry Kane scores that goal, but I think you're right. I think the pressure just gets to him in these big games, and I think it's very easy when you look back on someone's career to call them a bottler when they haven't succeeded in finals. And we were mentioning off air like Harry Kane for England not squaring it to Raheem Sterling, blazing the penalty over the bar, and he has had a few moments like that. He's had a lot of moments like that in his career, and let's not forget that Spurs basically only got to that Champions League final because he wasn't playing. And as soon as he get back into the team, they were a complete shadow of themselves. But I don't want to just slate Kane because I do think he's an unbelievable player. And we all said last week how underrated he is. But I just think there are some players where the moment just gets a little bit big for them. And I think the problem with Kane is because he stayed at Spurs so long and he never won a trophy, every single game now on that route to a trophy means so much more to him. And because he's 32, he's going to be retiring in 3-4 years. These are his last few seasons to win anything. And I think you saw it in that chance in the first few minutes. That was a chance of a player who had the weight of the world on their shoulders because he does not want to finish his career trophyless. And I think that pressure has just got to him.
I'm with you both, but then at the same time, sometimes I think football's so like there's certain things you can quantify. He's one of the best strikers in the world. If you put a striker in the world, one-on-one with a keeper in any given scenario, and you had a choice of two, he'd be in my top two every single time. Probably wouldn't be one, but he'd definitely be two. And so then I go...
All right, question. Life on the line in the final, you putting him, are you picking Harry Kane top two?
As in 1v1 with a keeper?
1v1 keeper.
Out of all the strikers in the world right now? Yeah.
So what changes? Why doesn't he score in finals?
So that is where I would go. If you've got all the technical quality to put it in the back of the net, I think it might just be a case of like he has a deflected shot and it goes in, and that's like the lift off he needs. We've spoken a lot about this Champions League being like the coming of age. PSG had it against Liverpool. Arsenal might have just had it against Madrid. Like Kane's a striker who's played many, many years, who's scored many, many goals. This could just be a case he scores one against Inter and you're in business.
I mean, let's be fair, like it's not easy to score in finals. And,
Thierry Henry's never scored in a final.
And no disrespect to Spurs, but every final they've been in, he's been in the underdogs team, and same with England. Let's be completely honest about it. Maybe not against Croatia, that might be a separate case. But you look at that squad.
Come on, you're England captain in Wembley against Italy, who didn't qualify for the next World Cup, and you can't get on the score sheet. You're England playing against a very naive and young Spain side last summer in the Euros, and you're off after 60 minutes. Like, how many times?
But football isn't easy, you see it a lot, and you see players who score in Champions League finals. It's like defenders and centre mids who haven't scored all season, and they pop up with one because that's how games go. Harry Kane is the most important player for every for every team that he plays for. He is the most important player.
Is that not an issue?
Which means in a final, he will almost always have the most amount of protection from defenders, which means he always has the least space and therefore the least chances. His very being on that pitch against Inter, let's say, in this second leg, means that Elise and it means that Sane have more space and they can have more chances. I agree, but I think we've got to be a bit sympathetic here to a guy who has never really played for the best team, has always mainly been in the underdogs team, and it's not easy to score in a final. Come on.
I know, but okay, there's just certain players that give you that feeling, right? And Kylian Mbappe is one of those. Kylian Mbappe could be having a poor game, World Cup final, for example. It feels like the whole narrative is behind Lionel Messi. Decisions are going their way. I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but it was It was written for Messi and Argentina to win that. And Kylian Mbappe said, no, I'm not having it. Gave us one of the greatest goals in World Cup final history. And barring losing the penalty shootout, where, again, he scored his penalty, we might be talking about Kylian Mbappe right now as the GOAT, because he would have 2 World Cups on his resume, 4 World Cup final goals. He is a player that gives you the feeling that in the biggest game he's going to turn up. Harry Kane is the opposite of that, and I don't understand why.
I think the conversation here is that, like, yes, I agree with the Mbappe point, but I think there's certain players that you'll be like, football fans across the world will remember. Fans in Japan are not watching Harry Kane, respectfully. They're not watching Harry Kane and going, he's like an icon of the game. Yeah. And I think what you're talking about is the narrative follows the icons. Yeah. Lautaro Martinez is an unbelievable striker. People in Pakistan don't know he exists. Yeah. You know, like, whereas like, so I think what we're comparing here is like a global phenomenon, and they love that stage. What I'm just asking is, Harry Kane takes on Inter Milan in the second leg for Bayern Munich and needs to get them a goal or get them out of this situation. Can he or can he not do it? And what it sounds like is we're saying, it's quite unlikely he's not going to be the guy. So then you go, who is the guy then?
Well, based on data, based on information, based on everything that we've got in front of us, it doesn't tell me that, again, we're dealing with one of the best managers in the world in Inzaghi, right? And he's going to have a game plan for not just Harry Kane, but for everybody. For Elise, for Sane. He's incredible when it comes to that tactical nous. But sometimes it's about the manalytics over the analytics. Figure out a way to get it done. Look, there's X's and O's behind you, man. Sometimes it's about the X's and O's, less about the X's and O's, and more about the Jims and the Joes. You just need to figure out a way to get that win over the line. And
I haven't heard that one in a while.
That's a good one.
But like, Harry Kane needs to figure out a way to do it in biggest games, because again, we can talk about how good these managers are, but ultimately it's the players that step onto the pitch and get the job done. And Harry Kane hasn't got the job done in multiple big occasions.
For what it's worth, I do think that Bayern go through in this time.
Really?
I think Inter are unbelievably well organised, but I just think Bayern have something a little bit special about them. It's probably a little bit of Vincent Kompany bias for me, but I think I look at that front four. I think we know that Thomas Muller's retiring at the end of the season. There's one last dance for him. He's a special, weird little player. He scored the other day as well. And then I look at like Leroy Sané, who has had a bit of a patchy career, let's be honest. I think he's another one who I said about Bruno Fernandes. He's a little bit psychologically strange, especially when it comes to the big moments. He can't seem to keep his head. He's always getting in scraps. But it is true about Sané. But there is obviously an unbelievable player there. And then you have Michael Olise, who's just completely come of age this season. I don't think anyone expected him to hit the ground running in the same way that he did. And I just think that they have so much quality that they don't need that many chances. They don't need much to get a goal against Inter.
I mean, in all fairness, in the first leg they had 20 and they only scored 1. And I think this is where, like, I would agree with you that if Bayern were playing probably anyone else in the tournament, bar maybe like an Arsenal, where I'd go, it doesn't matter that much about your coach. But Inzaghi and Inter are doing this well because of their coach. Like, respectfully, if I look at this 11, Jan Sommer is a decent goalkeeper, but then that back 5, Darmian at Manchester United, like, this happens a lot in Italian football, of course, but doing it in the Champions League is a different case. Darmian's played left back for him, he's played centre back, he's played right wing back, he's played left wing back. He does a job. Çalhanoğlu can't run anymore. Mkhitaryan can't run anymore. Barella's the one who runs and does the magic. Then it's Marcus Thuram, Lautaro Martinez. Lautaro Martinez is another one like Harry Kane, that in his country they don't think he's the guy. And so you're going, well, this team, there's no chance to beat Bayern Munich, but it's the gaffer, it's the tactics, and obviously we've been loving the pureness of football, but this guy will bore Bayern to death. It's just what he does.
Yeah, I agree, and that's why I'm going to go with Inter Milan.
Let's have your score prediction.
Just because of the spine, because of the steeliness, because of players like Bastoni, Barella, and Martinez, who is slightly underrated, I'm going for a 2-1 Inter Milan win.
I think Bayern win 1-0 and then win an extra time or penalties.
I'm going to go 1-0 Inter. I think they'll hold Bayern out.